Well, I hope you enjoyed summer. Kids go back to school this week. I'm Jeff Wagner in for Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Well, good morning. Welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, Milwaukee reached and quickly exceeded the 100 homicide total for the year with more than 4 months to go. We can only hope that the city's gangbangers and gun thugs will decide to take John Lennon's advice and give peace a chance. MPS staged a huge rally at the Milwaukee Panther Arena for employees to build enthusiasm for the coming school year. Students decided to enjoy one of the remaining days of summer vacation and skip planned protests. And finally, it was a big week for concerts. Jimmy Buffett played a sold-out show at Alpine Valley on Saturday, and One Direction played a sold-out show at the Bradley Center on Tuesday. Why do I think there weren't too many people who caught both of those shows? But first this morning, can Scott Walker get his mojo back? 6 weeks ago, Scott Walker was considered one of the leading candidates to win the Republican presidential nomination. And then along came Trump. For reasons that escape me, Donald Trump has completely sucked the air out of the nominating contest. Trump is now leading in all national polls and in the polls in early nominating states. Arguably, no candidate has been hurt more by Trump mania than Walker. On top of that, Walker has taken inconsistent positions on the immigration issue and appears to be desperately trying to right the ship. So, has Scott Walker lost his mojo? And can he get it back? Joining me on our panel this morning, Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan, State Senator Alberta Darling, Tracy Johnson of the Commercial Association of Realtors, and State Representative Jim Ott. Okay, Jim, let's start with you. Is the Walker campaign struggling?
Well, obviously, they've gone through a little rough period, Jeff, over the last few weeks. But, you know, by my count, it's a year and 3 months and a couple of days until the election. So there's a long way to go. And the fact is, the 17 Republican candidates, or whatever the number is, you know, you're probably going to end up in a few months with 4 or 5 of the top candidates. And I think Scott Walker is going to be among those top 4 or 5.
I mean, see, I would have agreed with you. I would have thought a couple months ago Walker was going to be one of the 2 or 3 left standing at the end. Now, he appears to be kind of a middle-of-the-pack guy. Can he turn it around?
A lot of time to turn it around. You look back at historically at campaigns, you know, even guys who eventually were elected president, you can look back at their campaigns and you could see some rough spots along the way, and a good candidate, a good person will recover from that. I certainly think that Scott can. There's time. And if you're going to have a rough period like this, better it happen now than 6 months from now.
Alberta.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. Don't bet against Scott Walker. I agree he's had a downturn, but I'm convinced he's going to have an upturn. Don't bet against him. He's a winner. He's shown he can really do what needs to be done to take on hard issues. I think he needs to remember who he is. He's Scott Walker. He says what he's going to do, and he does it, and he's like a rock star with people. He's much more energetic and passionate than he appears to be, or the press lets him appear to be. So, Scott, be yourself.
Okay, you use the term rock star. And as much as it pains me to say this, the one, at least in some circles, rock star that's emerged this summer is, Lord help us, Donald Trump.
Well, that's true.
I mean, Trump is packing, you know, 30,000 people coming out to see him. I mean, is he the rock star?
You know, he is a rock star because people like what he's saying. He's saying what people feel. They're frustrated with government. They want changes. But I think they're going to catch on to Trump. He doesn't have solid policy ideas, and he keeps changing his opinion. So Walker is a proven winner. I think people are going to want to go for a proven winner who can get things done.
Bob Donovan, I don't get the Trump factor. I mean, I swear, I don't get it.
I like the guy. Now, I like the fact, and there are a lot of things I disagree with him on, certainly, as I'm sure everyone does. But what I like about him is he stands up and speaks his mind, and that, just as Alberta said, that is what is attracting so many people. The level of frustration that I run across just in the city of Milwaukee with politics as usual. People are fed up with the bickering, the intense partisanship. They want government to work, and they want government to address the real issues and have the guts to stand up and call it like it is. The one thing I disagree with Trump on is Megyn Kelly, though. I like Megyn Kelly.
I do too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, Tracy Johnson, you've been a follower of the media and stuff. I mean, it's just that this whole Trump phenomena has sucked everything, I think, out of the campaign, and I think it's hurt Walker, I think, as much, if not more, than anybody else.
Well, and the thing with Walker, if you look at his numbers, no candidate has fallen faster and harder than Scott Walker. It's a shame for the Scott Walker campaign. But when you look at what he's doing, I think his tactics are very un-Scott Walker-like. Yep. He might be smart to lay low, maybe let the Trump phenomenon play out, and then do what he does best. He's got to focus on Iowa. Don't spend all your money, though, because it's a long race. Like Jim said, there's a lot of months ahead of us. If we can make it to the second tier, if we can make it past these debates, you got another game to fight.
Well, I think he clearly hurt himself on the immigration issue, where he tried to out-Trump Trump on immigration, and he got tied up as to where does he stand on birthright citizenship and these issues. That's not his strong point.
It's not. He's good in the small settings. He's going to be great in Iowa if he can focus on what he's good at. Meeting with people one-on-one. He's got a ton of charisma. He's got to focus on that. Right. While he's a strong politician, while he can stand up to the unions, while he can stand up for what he believes in, he's got to communicate it right. And he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, Alberta, one of the things that always struck me about Scott Walker was his ability to stay on message. Through Act 10, all that stuff. I just get the idea that he's been off message for the last month or so.
I think that's his campaign giving him some bad advice. I think he usually listens to himself, and I think it's time to listen to Scott Walker and do what you do best, is be Scott Walker.
You've also got a media out there, mainstream media, that's trying to direct the campaign the way they want to go, and it's important that Scott direct it the way he wants to go.
Right. I hope somebody would just say to Donald Trump, you're fired. Okay, what has your glass full? What has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. Bob Donovan.
Well, Jeff, my glass is half empty because the Green Bay Packers obviously have lost Jordy Nelson for the season. My glass is half full because I am absolutely confident that other players will step up to the plate to fill that void.
Alberta Darling.
Hey, my glass is half full because New Orleans proves that if you have high expectations for kids, they can learn and they'll do just great. Just a little more than half of New Orleans kids could graduate before Katrina. 10 years later, with education reform, 3/4 of these students graduate on time. Fewer than 7% attend failing schools. New Orleans makes me hopeful that we'll have reform in Milwaukee by MPS and by my new opportunity schools. My glass is half empty that too many kids are attending failing schools. Over the past few years, more than 50 MPS schools had less than 10 kids reach proficiency in reading or math. Our kids, family, and communities deserve better.
Tracy Johnson.
Well, my glass is half empty because despite Wisconsin ranking #2 in the nation for ACT scores, we see a stark racial disparity in the numbers, with non-white students performing 2 to 6 points lower than white students. Our state can't afford this disparity, and I believe we can do better for our kids. My glass is half full because for the 10th year, more than 1,300 MPS students had the chance to have a job thanks to Mayor Barrett's Earn and Learn program, giving students summer jobs, a paycheck, and more importantly, the skills for future employment.
Jim Ott.
Glass is half full because the Department of Natural Resources reported that 160 water samples recently taken in the Fox and Milwaukee Rivers showed no evidence of silver or big head carp. Great news. It's half empty because these invasive carp continue to edge northward in the Mississippi River watershed.
And my glass is half full because the stock market staged a midweek rally. It's half empty because every dime I put into my 401k this year has still gone up in smoke in the last 2 weeks. Oh well, I don't mind having to work until I'm 90. All right, next on Sunday Insight, a Milwaukee suburb desperately needs water. Where is it going to come from? Well, the city of Waukesha is facing a water crisis. Wells are drying up and have been found to contain unacceptable levels of radium. Now, the plan is to purchase Lake Michigan water from Oak Creek, treat it, and then return it to the lake. Under the Great Lakes Compact, though, the governors of all Great Lakes states have to sign off on the plan. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett and Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abley don't have a say, but they oppose the proposal nonetheless. So, is all this regional cooperation I'm always hearing about a one-way street? And should Waukesha be able to tap into Lake Michigan for its water needs? All right, let's turn to Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan.
Thanks
Never a water carrier.
Put me on the spot.
Never a water carrier.
You know, I think it's inevitable that otherwise you're just not going to see any continued growth in Waukesha. They have to find water someplace. Now, of course, that final decision is going to be made by the governors of the Great Lakes Compact, so it's certainly out of our hands. But I have looked at this situation, and to me, the ball's been dropped when it comes to really working meaningfully with Waukesha and our surrounding suburbs. sadly, we've got individuals in Milwaukee, and some of them that hold political office, that look at the suburbs with such disdain.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, there are individuals in the suburbs too who can't stand Milwaukee. But we have got to find a way for the growth of the region,
right,
really, to get this done.
Alberta, darling, I mean, these are some of your constituents.
Absolutely,
you know?
they are. And you know what, Bob is absolutely right on. We have to have regional cooperation, and we have to have Waukesha have water. There's no question it has to be done. They are just outside the water basin,
right,
just outside the boundary.
5 miles the other way, one way, and it doesn't make any difference,
but
right?
You know, the DNR has said you cannot go into the south because of the wetlands. So
right,
their choices are very limited. Their only real viable source would be Lake Michigan. And so I really hope we can talk to Barrett and Abley and say, look, let's be team players here. Let's grow the region. It's a big example of leadership that would count a lot for the growth of our state.
Jim, I mean, the way I understand the plan, Waukesha hopes to buy the water from Oak Creek, and then they will treat it and return it to the lake. So, I mean, this idea that it's going to diminish the lake resources doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
No, and it's the same thing that communities along the lakeshore do. Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee, you take water out of Lake Michigan, use it, treat it, send it back to the lake, hopefully in very good condition, as long as Waukesha sends it back, you know, properly
right,
treated. No problem there. And actually, I don't see how the governors or the heads of the provinces can vote against Waukesha on this, because they do qualify under the Great Lakes Compact. They're
right,
in a community that's an adjacent county,
right,
and they're just west of the Continental Divide, so they qualify.
Right. Now, Tracy Johnson, I know you were big about regional cooperation when we were talking about trying to get the arena built, and I mean, the support in the state legislature came from a lot of suburban legislators. Okay, is turnabout fair play? Should we be sending water to Waukesha?
Well, in this specific issue, yes, I definitely think we've got to look at the economic reasons. But the interesting thing is that you've got an economic argument, and then you've got the environmental argument. And when you look at why the Great Lakes Compact was developed, there were so many environmental reasons. And they're saying, has Waukesha exhausted all efforts? And for the short term, maybe there are solutions, but for the long term, which is about the economic development, this is the way to go. Now, I can see the governors perhaps being concerned that this is setting a precedent, but I think they're going to have to look beyond that, because we've got sophisticated water treatment efforts, right, and we need this for our region.
Yeah, see, I don't think this is about the environment at all. I think Tom Barrett wants to try to stifle growth in Waukesha, and he's going to try to do it every way he can. I don't think it's going to work. Well, you may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you anyways. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. We start with Bob Donovan.
Well, Jeff, my advice goes to Chief Flynn. Rescind the no pursuit policy. While it was certainly implemented to improve safety in Milwaukee, it has actually resulted in a less safe community.
I'm Alberta Darling.
My advice is for the Milwaukee Bucks. You know that one of their players, Parker, hosted a basketball camp in Grafton and got 200 kids to participate. It was a great event, and it showed how committed the Bucks are to our region. My unsolicited advice is, Bucks, keep doing community outreach. These efforts work. You'll grow your audience.
Tracy Johnson.
Well, my unsolicited advice is to supporters of the Bucks Arena. Call your City of Milwaukee alderman or attend Monday's Common Council public hearing. We are so close to an arena deal that will mean thousands of good-paying jobs for our community and tax revenue that will go unrealized if we fail to get this done.
Jim Ott.
Jeff, to anyone who thinks that some major reforms are not needed in Wisconsin's Government Accountability Board, check out last Friday's Wall Street Journal editorial. Recently released emails confirm GAB staff members running the GAB as a very partisan agency.
Amen. And my unsolicited advice is from Milwaukee County Executive and 2018 candidate for governor, Chris Abley, who over the last couple weeks has been hiring current and former officials with the Democratic Party of Wisconsin as fast as he can. Chris, you might not have noticed, but those people have guaranteed that Democrats will be a minority party in the Wisconsin legislature for a generation. Why not hire the winners instead? Next on Sunday Insight, how will the Packers do without Jordy Nelson? Well, earlier this week, the stock market was crashing, China's economy was imploding, the political world was in upheaval, and civil unrest continued to plague some large urban areas. At water coolers throughout Wisconsin, though, there was one and only one topic: the season-ending injury to Jordy Nelson, the all-pro wide receiver for the Packers. So, should the Packers just fold up their tent and wait until next year? Is the Super Bowl still realistic? Can the team overcome the loss? What's a Packers fan to do? Tracy Johnson.
Boy, it was a sad day for Packers fans everywhere. I was following the whole thing on Twitter, and boy, you would have thought the stock market crashed 1,000 points, right? But there's a reason that teams are made up of more than one player, and I think the Packers are going to be just fine. You've got Aaron Rodgers, who's very diverse. I think you've got McCarthy, who's very confident. I think he's going to be just fine.
Okay.
We're going to the Super Bowl.
Well, there you have it. Okay, Bob Donovan, she's not jumping off a bridge.
I would agree. I look at this team as a team of great talent, and here's the opportunity for them, with your backs up against the wall, losing a key player like this, to step up to the plate and earn the position, and I think they can do it, and I'm confident they will.
Okay, 2 for 2. Alberta
Hey,
Darling.
we all love Jordy Nelson, and we want him back. But the fact is, he got hurt. But if you look at Randall Cobb's record, it's very close to what Jordy has done, although he was the go-to person for Rodgers when he really had to make a key play. But I'm very confident the management has built in the sustainability. And you know, if you look at 2010, they had 15 players who were injured, and they still went to the Super Bowl.
Jim, what drives me crazy, though, is it did happen in this exhibition game. Now, I mean, it's a catch the guy's made probably 10,000 times, but you blow out your knee on a meaningless play in a meaningless game.
Yeah, very frustrating, no question about it. And Jordy Nelson, an incredible player and all-around incredible member of the community, so he definitely will be missed on the field, no question about that. But, you know, Jeff, if you look back over the history of our championship seasons, you know, 1996, 2010, there were other injuries, as Alberta said. And it's always amazing, when you look at those championship runs, there are players that step up that you don't expect, and they perform phenomenally. So I think the Packers have a good chance to go to the Super Bowl.
I completely agree. I mean, as long as you've got Aaron Rodgers, I think everything's fine. Now, that is to say, in these exhibition games, I'd be protecting Aaron Rodgers, because that's what gets it done. Okay, what is it they said this week? What is it that you heard? Let's go around the table. Alderman Donovan.
Well, what Mayor Barrett said was that in Milwaukee, crime is down and it's a safe city. What I'm hearing from the people is quite the opposite.
Alberta Darling.
Well, what they said is that Joe Biden is prepping for a presidential run. But what I heard, the Democrats know Hillary has too much baggage, and they're looking to dump her sooner rather than later.
Tracy Johnson.
What I heard is UW-Madison official Everett Mitchell said he recommends police stop responding to shoplifting and theft as a way to reduce over-policing of the community. What I heard is small crimes really don't matter and shouldn't be addressed as a way to stop future criminal activity.
Jim Ott.
What President Obama said in the July town hall meeting in Nashville was that he expected health insurance premiums to come in significantly lower than what was being requested. What I heard was that last week the Tennessee Insurance Commissioner approved the full 36.3% increase in rates being sought by the state's largest insurer because of higher than expected claims under Obamacare.
And for me, Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn said that he wants the presidential candidates to have a reasonable conversation about gun control. What I heard was, I continue to be clueless about how to stop gun violence in Milwaukee, and my buddy the mayor and I really need to find a scapegoat. Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. First, though, here's your morning news update. Well, it's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Bob Donovan, you're first.
Well, Jeff, my winners are the residents of Milwaukee's 11th Aldermanic District. They recently elected Mark Borkowski as their new alderman, and I am absolutely confident Mark will represent his constituents well and exercise some much-needed common sense as a member of the Common Council. My losers are the 2 carjackers recently apprehended in Greenfield who are now facing federal charges. Milwaukee needs to follow Greenfield's lead on this.
Alberta Darling.
My winners are the North Shore students, families, and educators. Wow. Homestead, Nicolay, and Shorewood high schools were recognized in Newsweek's top 500 high schools. And Whitefish Bay was ranked #1 in Wisconsin and 30th in the nation. My losers are Arkansas and Indiana. These states lost out to Wisconsin's Oshkosh Corporation on a $6.7 billion contract to build a replacement for the Humvee. That massive contract is expected to have a huge impact on the whole state.
Tracy Johnson.
My losers are in the city of Seattle. In addition to a $15 minimum wage, gun purchasers will be forced to pay an additional $25 tax with the idea that it will stop gun violence. I ask, why are we punishing law-abiding citizens when they aren't the problem? A misguided solution to an issue that they clearly don't understand. My winner, the economy, the U.S. economy. Despite a rough week on Wall Street and rising oil prices, GDP rose by 3.7%. Economists expect that gains in employment and rising home prices will continue to push the economy through the end of the year.
Jim Ott.
My losers this week, Jeff, Donald Trump and talk show host Rachel Maddow for their comments this summer distorting Wisconsin's economic progress under Scott Walker. Even PolitiFact found Ms. Maddow's July statement on Wisconsin's middle class false. My winner, the Oshkosh Corporation, for obtaining a contract from the U.S. Army to produce up to 50,000 of its new Joint Light Tactical Vehicles. The contract could ultimately be worth up to $30 billion and provide 25 years' worth of work. And the Army gets a vehicle that will provide better protection for our troops.
And my loser this week is perpetually unhinged Milwaukee Congresswoman Gwen Moore, a proud graduate of MPS, who said this week that Scott Walker was literally tightening the noose around the necks of African Americans. I swear, you can't make this stuff up. My winner, and there is a theme, is the Oshkosh Corporation that landed that $30 billion potentially Defense Department contract to make vehicles for the military. It's good for Oshkosh, it's good for Wisconsin, it's good for the country. Thank you so very much for joining us. Have a great week.